All right, let's talk about something truly wild. This is a story about the moment the American presidency crashed headfirst into the insane world of cryptocurrency. I mean, just picture it. A sitting U.S. president launches his very own meme coin. As you can probably guess, it kicked off a massive financial and political firestorm, and it really made people ask some fundamental questions about power, profit, and ethics.
So, when the most powerful political office on the planet decides to dive into the notoriously shaky world of meme coins, what happens next? What does that even look like? What are the ripple effects for the market, for our politics, and yeah, for the regular people who decided to put their own money on the line? The stakes, as you can imagine, could not have been higher.
And the answer? Well, the numbers basically tell the entire story. It's a tale of two completely different realities. On one side, you have the coin's creators who, according to analyses from the Financial Times and the New York Times, walked away with over $350 million in profit. And on the other side, a staggering $2 billion loss for hundreds of thousands of public investors.
I mean, just look at this quote from Senator Jeff Merkley. He called it the Mount Everest of American corruption. When you hear language that strong, you know we're not just talking about some minor political tiff. For a lot of critics, this was about the very integrity of the presidency itself.
Okay, so how in the world did we even get here? To really get it, we've got to rewind to the very beginning. Let's break down the mechanics of how this thing launched, because it was something else.
The speed of this whole thing was just breathtaking. So on January 17th, just 3 days before the inauguration, this coin just appears on the Solana blockchain. A few hours later, the president himself gives it the nod on social media, and the market just went bananas. In less than 2 days, it wasn't some joke coin anymore. It was the 19th most valuable crypto in the world.
Now, it's super important that we're all on the same page about what a meme coin actually is. These things aren't like stocks or bonds. They are born from internet jokes and culture, and their value is almost entirely based on social media hype, not on any real-world use case. And that's what makes them famously, and I mean famously, volatile.
And here's the kicker, the fine print. On the coin's own website, there was this little disclaimer tucked away, saying it was not political and, get this, not intended to be an investment opportunity. Now, you're going to want to remember that because that official line stands in pretty stark contrast to how this whole thing actually played out.
So, with all that chaos, where did all the money actually go? Let's follow the trail and see who really made out like a bandit and who got left holding the bag. So the first huge red flag for a lot of people was the ownership structure. Only 20% of the coins were ever released to the public. Just a tiny slice of the pie. A whopping 80% was held by two companies owned by Donald Trump himself. That gave his team just overwhelming control right from the get-go.
And this data, pulled from a bunch of different reports, it just lays out the brutal truth. While the insiders were raking in hundreds of millions, more than 800,000 regular investor wallets lost money. But here's the stat from Fortune magazine that it floors me. For every single dollar the creators made in fees, the average retail investor lost $20. Think about that ratio.
So, the aftermath? It was a financial wasteland. Total losses for investors were floating around $2 billion. It didn't take long for analysts to start calling it a classic pump and dump. You know, where insiders hype something up, inflate the price, cash out at the top, and leave everyone else with basically worthless tokens. All while a tiny little group of just 58 wallets walked away with over $10 million each.
And that brings us to what might be the most controversial part of this whole saga, an exclusive dinner that many critics basically called a blatant sale of access to the President of the United States.
So how did you get a seat at this table? Well, the process was disturbingly simple. You bought your way in. It was a tiered system. The more Trump coin you owned, the closer you got to the president. The top holders got a dinner invite. The top 25, they got a private VIP reception. And the top 4 investors were handed $100,000 watches. It was a direct, clear line from your wallet to the president's ear.
And who was there? Well, the guest list, which the New York Times pieced together, immediately set off alarm bells. You had a crypto guy who's actively under investigation by the SEC.
You had a CEO who just openly said he bought the tokens to lobby for policy changes, and you had a whole slew of foreign business interests, which ethics experts said created a huge opportunity for foreign influence.
As you can probably guess, the reaction to the coin and this dinner was, well, it was swift and it was severe. It unleashed a wave of condemnation from all over the place.
The nonpartisan watchdog group, CREW, did not mince words. They called it one of the most blatant and appalling examples of selling access to the presidency they had ever seen. A direct shot across the bow of long-standing government ethics.
And hey, this criticism wasn't just coming from political opponents. This quote here is from Nick Carter, a crypto investor who's actually pro-Trump. Even he felt the whole venture was distasteful and a distraction, saying it hurt the credibility of the crypto industry itself.
And then you hear from a former insider, and the condemnation gets even sharper. Anthony Scaramucci, who was briefly in the first Trump administration, drew this dramatic comparison. He argued that the coin had created a direct, frictionless pipeline for anyone in the world to basically deposit money straight into the president's bank account.
But here's the thing. The Trump coin wasn't some isolated, one-off event. We need to zoom out a bit to see how it fits into a much larger pattern of the Trump family's deep dive into the crypto space.
For instance, just 2 days, after the president launched his coin, First Lady Melania Trump launched her own, the MLMINANA token. And this launch was also tangled up in controversy, with allegations of sniping. That's an illegal thing where insiders use secret info to buy up tokens right before they're announced to the public.
And it goes way beyond just meme coins. The family also co-founded a major decentralized finance platform, or DeFi platform, called World Liberty Financial. According to reports, that venture alone has earned them another $500 million. So we're talking about a massive financial entanglement with this industry.
So all of this controversy, from the coin itself to that dinner, you knew it was going to lead to some serious political fallout and major calls for action back in Washington.
And the official response was pretty severe and came from multiple angles. Congressional committees in both the Senate and the House launched formal investigations. The whole affair even led some Democrats to start talking about impeachment. And in a very direct legislative reaction, lawmakers introduced something called the Meme Act, a bill specifically designed to stop any government official from ever doing something like this again.
So in the end, the whole Trump coin affair just blew the doors off what was considered acceptable for a public official. It showed us exactly how new technology can create these slick, frictionless ways to merge political power with personal profit. And that leaves all of us with a huge and honestly a kind of tricky question for the future. Whose job is it to draw the line? And maybe more importantly, where on earth should that line even be?